Here. Hello, I am Elaine Masters, and I welcome you to our very wonderful panel discussion about video storytelling. We have wonderful guests with us. So let's just jump right in. Maggie, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
And then we'll have time at the end for our questions. Maggie, how did you learn to create videos, and how are they helping you professionally?
I started with just using iMovie on my laptop and just kind of piecing things together. And then it started to kind of evolve from there. I was bringing in more tools, editing tools. I started doing CapCut and finding out things. I started taking webinars to teach myself how to do the latest applications and the latest editing and stuff. It's helped me because moving pictures is king when it comes to any kind of social media. If I'm somewhere traveling, people want to see me experiencing what I'm doing, in a video, not always a still shot. So it's helped me tremendously.
Wonderful. Now, Luis and Alejandro, were you always interested in video storytelling?
Alejandro, would you like to go first?
For me, it started way back in high school at the San Diego School of Creative Performing Arts. I took multimedia productions there, video productions way back then. And then from there, I always had it. I always had it. I mean, I had a good teacher back then who taught me the basics of video production. And then from there, I was a teacher, high school teacher for a little bit, and then transitioned to television at the San Diego Union-Tribune. And for me, that transition was a little difficult, but I brought all the skills that I had as a student from video production, later as a teacher of video production, and then now doing what I love, which is creating videos. What my motto is always is I create videos for the world, really.
Beautiful.
Yes. Well, as a kid, I used to watch my mom watch the Spanish language news every night, and then I guess report back to what she saw on the news to my dad when he got home from work from his janitor job at 1 a.m. And so I just grew up watching news, and I knew I wanted to be a reporter. And I luckily, when I was 17 years old, I was hired to host a teen talk show for the ABC station in San Francisco. And so I was a senior in high school, and here I was, shy kid, didn't really have any natural talent, but they hired me anyway, and the rest is history. 30 years later, I've been doing video ever since.
We're all coming from such different backgrounds. It's fascinating, yet here we are in this intersection right now, because video is king, like you said. What stories do you think are most important to pursue? Like, we all have only so much time. Where do you find those stories? I'll leave it open to whoever wants to jump in first.
I'll jump in. One of the things from my end is I know that news versus being a travel journalist is kind of the two ends of the spectrum, and it's my job to be upbeat and to be positive and to be kind of a good story into people's day, and then that I also kind of had to have educating them on things while I do my videos. So those are the things that I think important to pursue.
And where do you find those stories?
It's interesting because sometimes I'm assigned the stories, and it's a thing that I would think I wouldn't want to go to this particular place. I get there and I go, well, where has this place been? This is great. So, and sometimes I on my own just think I have a demographic of women 45 to 65, and I usually see what is going to most appeal to them.
Great. So, and your outlets are primarily where then?
Outlets are travelwithmaggie.com and then all the different social media outlets.
Okay, great. And for you, Alejandro?
For me, as a photojournalist and visual journalist, I go around the city. I mean, the entire city, both sides of the border. And usually when you're out on an assignment, covering a general topic or it can be anything, breaking news, whatever it is, you usually find as you're asking questions, as you're interviewing subjects or people, for your stories, you usually find leads to other stories within those leads. So for me, it's just been the cities, both cities give me so much. I mean, I can go to any location, and as soon as I start talking to people, someone might point me to one direction, another direction, and then later I'm like, oh, you know what? This is a really good story, and I can come back later and pursue that story with a little bit more in depth.
So would you say that it's important to follow what resonates with you, and that's where you'll find the most success?
It's really you got to get out there, and when you do get out there, you'll see. I mean, depending what part of the city you're in, I mean, really any part, any part. And you're right. What resonates with you, what you feel like might be a really good, compelling story, you just I don't know what it is. You just follow your hunch, intuition, and you take it from there.
Right. And
Yeah.
Luis?
Yeah, I was going to say, as my former boss used to say, as Jeff Light used to say, stories come from the people you talk to. So obviously the people that we meet, that's where we originate the story ideas. We find out what's going on in their lives and what they're concerned about, and then try to cover that. But Alejandro and I were fortunate enough to work together for 10 and a half years, both in San Diego and LA, where we were able to basically pick the brains and collaborate with, really remarkable journalists in both the LA Times and the San Diego Union-Tribune. And we would read their stories and, be blown away. And Alejandro and I would get together and be like, this would make a really good story, a really good visual story. And we collaborate with our print counterparts, and sure enough, we would tell some pretty good stories.
Well, when I look at all the awards behind you, I guess it's working.
Thank you.
So I'm hearing it's about collaboration, it's about staying open. And then how do you keep track of the stories that you want to tell? Maggie or anyone?
I'll let you guys go first this time.
Alejandro, you're the busy one these days. Do you want to take this one?
It's hard to keep track of what you cover and what I do. I mean, in 1 week, I might have several different assignments, and it gets overwhelming because by the time I post something about one story, I'm already like doing, I don't know, like I'm already on my fifth one. So it gets very for me, it's yeah, somebody will say, "Hey, congratulations on that story." I'm like, "Which one?" Did you know that I'm like, I'm not doing the floods anymore. I'm doing this one now, or I'm not doing the homicides anymore. I'm doing this one now, and it is a busy profession. You're always on the move, and you're always constantly you're really pivoting from one topic to another, and that's really what I love about this job. I mean, and I've said this example before. One day I might be in a multi-million-dollar house in La Jolla covering a story there, and then that same afternoon I might be in the migrant camp at the border, and you see the two lives and two worlds in one day, and that's really one of the most humbling part about the job. I mean, you get to see two worlds all the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think also with social media, it gets to where you have to constantly be on trend. You know what I mean? So you might find something, it's like you got to always kind of be anticipating what your next move is.
Yeah. And I'm old school, I still use the old pen and paper to keep track of everything. Otherwise, I'm going to forget. But then also I use Google Docs to make sure that I log in whatever the story idea may be. If there are any links that if maybe I came across it on social media, on television, or a print publication, and so I make sure that I have a central location, again, just to keep track of everything, because otherwise there's so much coming at you that you may forget, like, where did I see that again, or where did I read about that, or who told me about that, or whose phone number. I know I saved it somewhere.
I hear you. So let's go back to the personal talents or skills that you have to develop. What do you think are some of the most important elements that you need to have or to develop if you want to be a successful video storyteller? I open it to the panel.
I'll go first. For me, it's learning. I mean, literally, you're learning. 10 Emmy Awards, all these recognitions that I've received, and at the end of the day, I'm still learning. And I think the old saying, "No, the more you know, the less you know." And it really, I feel like that sometimes too, where you feel like you mastered something, and you're like, "Oh, I have the best gear that I need, the best audio that I use to capture, the best lighting," and nope, there's something else that's going to come, or new technology that's going to come and change your game. So or new lens or whatever. So whatever it is, just keep learning and try to stay afloat with what's coming up. You do not need the newest bells and whistles for equipment, but you do need to understand how your equipment works and really master that part of it, because so many times at the beginning I've worked with interns that go out and immediately just take a camera and grab a microphone and go shoot something. And I'm like, dude, take your headphones, monitor your sound. And I don't know how many times I've seen interns come back. I'm like, there's no sound. I'm like, whoa, yeah, you forgot this or you forgot that. So just understand your gear, understand your equipment. That's one technical part of this, but always keep learning, because you're gonna keep doing what you want to do, but the technology and the skills are always changing.
I agree with him. It's kind of my one word is educate. Just always educating. I am at least once or twice a week. I am doing something, whether it's a class, a webinar, learning on my own, whatever. I'm always trying to educate myself to stay relative, you know.
Right.
Luis, yes?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I agree with both Maggie and Alejandro. You have to stay curious, and that's key. You have to want to keep on learning. And while you're crafting your story, I think there's a couple of questions you have to ask yourself in order for the story to be successful is why should I care? So when I was a news director and I would hire, reporters right out of college, whenever they would pitch a story, that was the first question. Okay, but why should I care? Because that's what the audience is going to be asking. How is it going to affect them? And so you're trying to get people to care about what you're trying to say. And you're trying to, you need to think about what message or what is the big question you want them to think about. And then the other thing is just making an emotional connection is key. Obviously, you want the facts in your story, but again, you want that emotional connection. You want that central character that's going to draw people in. And so Alejandro and I think have always looked for that central character when we go out and try to look for stories. And again, in terms of the emotion, sometimes you say that and they're like, oh, but yeah, it's all about the facts. Yes, of course you want to get the facts, but you also want to get people to listen. And so that's how you draw them in. And, and as the famous saying goes, people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So when I'm writing a story, and especially if it's a long-term or an in-depth type of project, if I go back and I look at it and it doesn't make me feel anything, then I'm disappointed, but B, I better go back and try to rewrite that until I get to the point where I'm feeling some sort of emotion, whether it's I'm excited about something, whether I'm upset about something, whether I'm sad about something. But because if I'm not going to remember it, I don't expect the audience to remember it either.
I agree. I mean, emotion is a big thing of it. I have people who come up to me, don't know me at all. They only know me through just technology. And they're like, I want to travel with you. Well, the only way they would know that is because they've been watching me and the emotion that I'm doing, and they're getting a connection and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Luis.
We're kind of in different worlds in a way, in that Maggie and I are more on the social media end of things, but we're all storytellers. And that's the part that I try to get through in my videos, even if they're 30 seconds long, is there's a beginning, middle, end to it. It can be just, it depends on what's trending. Like people want to see something beautiful or they want to see something interesting. You start with that, then you tell the story. But I have a hard time putting myself, for example, on screen because I'm just trying to represent my demographic too. And I think that's something a lot of us have had to get over who are in the social media end of things and working on our own personal brands. Would you agree, Maggie?
Well, it's very true. And it's funny you're saying that because a lot of people that I follow or a lot of people that I engage with, they are on camera all the time. They're on camera. And so I feel like after a while I know them. And that's what you want. It's like when I want to take people along with me. Like I went to Iceland and every day I took them to the different town I was at and this and that. And here's what we're going to do. Oh my God, you got to try this. And I'd show them the soup and I took them along through my trip to Iceland with me. And that's what they like. And you also have to really pay attention to feedback because people will tell you. And one of the things I found, like just on whatever, like what is everybody was like, oh my God, what are you wearing? Where'd you get that shirt? How do you have different clothes on? You know, that people were actually looking at what I was wearing too. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. So I realized I had to get a little bit more into that, you know, because people wanted to know.
It brings me to another idea is that with Alejandro and Luis, you're out there, you're shooting things. I don't know how much time you personally spend on camera, or if you're developing these ideas, gathering the pieces, and then turning it over to someone else who will be that spokesperson. How does that transition work for you? Is it difficult? How does that work?
For me personally, I like to create subject-driven pieces. So the subjects tell the stories, and the subjects are the ones that you're following them, and they're giving you an explanation of what's happening. And I've kind of always I actually never been in front of the camera, not for an actual like production or an actual company video, but Luis has been the face. I'm usually the guy behind the camera, and Luis is the one in front of the camera. So he can speak more on that part about like being the talent.
Well, yes. I mean, like I said, I was very fortunate enough to work with Alejandro for the last 10.5 years. And so I did a lot of the on-camera work, and Alejandro did all the beautiful magic with the photography and the editing. But slowly it transitioned into me helping, or Alejandro and I helping our colleagues who maybe didn't have as much experience being in front of the camera, and so they were in front of the camera. And then we also, as Alejandro mentioned, we produced a lot of videos with central characters and telling the story. And now in my new role at the American Heart Association, I still get to tell stories. I still shoot video. But I do, again, it's the people that I'm profiling and that I'm highlighting. They're the ones that are telling the story. But now, you know, we're shooting with our phones and vertically, you know, for Instagram Reels and that sort of thing. So the technology has really changed, but it's made it a lot easier. Thank goodness we don't have to lug around the equipment that we did when I started. I started working with 3/4-inch tapes, and then Betacam tapes, and then VHS tapes, and then DVC Pro, and then mini DV tapes, and then it was the memory cards, and now it's your cell phone. So to Maggie's point, and your point, Elaine and Alejandro, it's always changing. And so we don't know what's on the horizon, but we have to be willing to learn.
Right.
I have something to add real quick. There was one reporter, Alexandra Mendoza. She's going to hate me for this, but she never was in front of the camera. Never. I mean, she's a print reporter, and one short documentary we were doing on Friendship Park at the border, I asked her, hey, just say these lines in front of the camera, and the rest you can read. And that's how you make the people in front of the camera comfortable. It's just I just need you to say your name and where we're at, and then the rest you can read it. She did say her name, and she did say her line after like 10 times because she was really, really nervous. But she won an Emmy Award for that for that piece.
Oh my
And so So it was her first time on camera, and she was really happy, and she was more upset that I didn't go. Luis, you know this story, that I didn't go to the Emmy Awards that year to receive the award, and she was put on the spot to say the speech of receiving the award.
Yeah, but to your point, Alejandro, I mean, you said she had to remember, one line, or this is after her reporting of what she has been reporting on. So it's taking now the print word and how do we translate that into video?
Mhm. And it does get easier the more you do it, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. We do have some questions coming through, and they kind of dovetail into some of the questions we were going to discuss. We were going to talk a little bit about the technology changing your job as a storyteller, but also one of our questions came in about, are there any courses or classes that you know that can help you to become better at technical things like using lighting kits, editing software, graphics? What would you recommend?
I'm going to let Alejandro handle this since he was the teacher, because when I worked with Alejandro, I would ask all my I would just ask Alejandro, hey, how do I edit this? How do I do that? How do I play with the sound here? And now I don't have Alejandro, so now I actually have to look it up on YouTube. But you can find, pretty much everything on YouTube. But
YouTube is a good resource. As far as courses and stuff like that, I mean, the technology changes so much. I mean, for me personally, I use Premiere, and prior to that, I was using Final Cut Pro. I've heard other people use iMovie in the past, which is okay to do what you need to do. Just the pro softwares just give you a little bit more control. And then I just want to say this, like, there's a lot of bells and whistles in a lot of the editing software. The most important thing you're going to do is a straight cut. So you don't need all these fancy transitions, fancy effects. Just understand that most of your stuff will be just a plain cut, maybe some audio mixing, audio adjustments. And as far as, like I said, lighting and all this other stuff, YouTube is a great source. And the other great source is just calling someone or messaging someone, say, hey, how did you do that? How did you like that? And I remember there was a transition between being a teacher and going into working for the UT. I had a year off, and during that year, I really did just reach out to total, sometimes strangers who I would see some of the techniques, and I'd say, hey, how do you get that background blurred? And how is that? How is that? How are you doing that with your cameras? And you learn that it's not, yeah, it's the lens, but it's how you set the lens to a specific setting to get those nice blurred backgrounds behind you. And again, those are things that you learn by just either following someone, learning something. But at the end of the day, I have this on my website. If people want to have questions, I'm always happy to help people with, like, whatever, any video question. I get some of my former students still asking me questions once in a while. Hey, Tamayo, how did you do this and this? And I'm just, if I have time, I'll answer.
That's awesome. How about you, Maggie? Have you kept learning with the different techniques, with the different cell phones or cameras?
I have. I belong to a number of different organizations, SATW, Society of American Travel Writers, etc. And a lot of those groups do regular webinars and technology things because this is what we all need to, keep up on. So I do that. I do YouTube. I will see if there's just something even locally, which is kind of hard to find in person, in the last couple of years. But I will see something and then I'll just go on, I'll Google it and I'll say, okay, how am I going to do this? How do I learn it? And then I watch videos as to how they do it and just sit there and just do it. I mean, I can't stress enough that saying just do it is so true in so many regards. But I found that if I just keep doing it and doing it, then eventually I get it, I learn it.
Yeah.
And just like Alejandro said, just when I get it all learned and I feel comfortable, it changes.
Let's just learn to embrace that.
Exactly. And then it's like,
yeah.
So.
Yeah. A game changer for me was the cell phone. When I was traveling and doing short videos, you'd hold up a camera, people would change immediately. They'd freeze, they'd question, what are you going to do with that? Rightly so. I appreciate that. I think it's ethically and important to respect that. But you hold up a cell phone and everybody immediately just, they're comfortable with that. They may ask you the same questions, but it just has been an equalizer in a huge way. And the other thing you reminded me of, Maggie, is that what they say, that there's a saying about the key to mastery is 10,000 steps. Oh boy, have I been giving that some practice. So, I shoot a lot of, what?
Do you edit on your cell phone?
I do.
I've even done that too on the fly. They have a really good editing program on an iPhone. I just zip, 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 and you have filters that make it pop. And I'm like, if I'm on the fly, like, whatever, in Croatia at a waterfall, I can just go in and edit. It's really very handy, actually.
Right. There's been a real question in my mind about, is it best to shoot vertical or landscape? And I wonder where you're all at with that.
Well, I'm going to jump in on this because it's the bane of my existence. I have to know ahead of time where it's going to go, because if it's just going to go on Instagram stories, I'm going to do vertical. But if I'm going to go on Facebook on a post, that has to go horizontal. And if I'm going to go here on my website, it has to go. So I have to know ahead of time. And sometimes I have to shoot the same scene a couple times because I have to do a vertical and horizontal.
Yeah.
I do the same thing, Maggie. Yes. So depending on where we think the videos are going to end up, then that's what determines where I shoot most of, or how I shoot most of the video. But a lot of times, I do end up shooting horizontal and vertical just to be on the safe side. So I make sure I have enough to cover different platforms.
Right.
And for me, it's just always been horizontal for the stuff that we create. It's all horizontal videos for our site, and even Instagram is still horizontal. So yeah, I keep them horizontal.
So if you do, I'm gonna go ahead, Luis. I was gonna jump in and ask.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, prior to my new role, everything that I'd shot was horizontal. But now, we're using social media more, especially in my capacity. So I'm shooting more vertical video.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I have to say that just last week, I saw a New York Times video in their Sunday edition, I think, that was vertical. I was so surprised. It was one they were featuring. It was the first time I'd seen that. Just for me, it was a very interesting trend. We'll see where it goes. All right. So along that line, where do you think all of this is going to be heading in the next couple of years in terms of visual storytelling? Is it going to remain as important as it is? Do you think more people should jump into it? Or are we going to give more emphasis to written word? Where do you see this going?
I think we've seen the changes, especially Alejandro and I, where there was and there is more focus on photojournalism and videos. And now, in our fields as marketing and communications professionals, as you mentioned, we're posting a lot of video on different social media platforms and on websites. So I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that, as a matter of fact, I think that it's probably going to continue to gain more popularity.
I think one thing that I'm noticing is that the attention span of people is getting shorter and shorter, whereas you can't do a long form video. You just can't. I try. So now I feel like it's just going to continue to get edit. It's just really quick. They want to see it real fast across, whatever platform they're on. So I feel like it's heading even more like that. I think now the attention span is probably 3 seconds. It used to be 7, then it went to 5. Now it's down to, I'm seeing that.
Well,
I hear you.
I work in print media, and print media is not the big, strong companies that they were. So the digital world is requiring us to be a little bit more visual for sure, and not just visual with photos, but video as well, and video storytelling. So for us, I do hope to see video continue and keep it going.
Maggie, you mentioned something about long form and that the attention span is changing. However, you are doing a series of things as your brand, as your very creatively tasks over the coming year, and you're shooting those as a series. Alejandro and Luis, you have been shooting series or developing series ideas. It's different. They're two flip sides of the coin. So could you talk a little bit first, Maggie, about, we have the time to, about what you're doing this year, the thrust of your series idea, and then I'll come back to you too.
I'm doing a series where it's 12 countries, 12 traditions, 12 cultures. And so for 1 month, for 12 months, I'm going to be taking a different country and I'm going to do a deep dive into a tradition that they have in that particular country. The first month I did was flamenco dancing. And so I myself are going to go into the actual, I took flamenco dancing classes, which was really interesting. But the people literally were like, oh, I haven't seen a video. Is more coming? Is more coming? They start to really get vested in you, like what you're doing. Then the next month, for a month, I did French cooking. And so they wanted to say, what are you cooking next? You know, so I'm taking them through all these different cultures that they can do at home too, because not everybody can travel. This month I'm doing Japanese origami, which has been really fascinating. You know, so I don't tell people what the next month is going to be until they have to come the first of that month and see, this month we're doing. And so it kind of is taking them along on a culture trip. That's what it's called.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. Okay, you two have worked together a lot on different series. How do you develop a series?
Well, for me, the ones that I've worked with the newsroom, those are like big topics, big serious topics that either reporter or reporters have covered this story, and then based on their investigation or their research, we collaborate, and then we look at how we can turn this into a visual package. And with when we had Jeff Light, he was really for it. I mean, to promote big projects like this. I did work with Luis on, we did a week of homicides in Tijuana, where it was just a straight week of covering homicides. And then Luis, I worked with Luis at the end of that with creating a whole package on that, a whole video documentary on that. And then later I worked with another topic on the missing in Mexico. Later I worked on another series on the murder of the two Tijuana journalists that were killed 2 years ago. And so those are hard topics. And when with Luis, I've had the pleasure of doing something a little bit different, which was Nuestra Voz Today, which was a product of the San Diego Union-Tribune, where we covered stories from both sides of the border with a little bit of a lighter tenses. And Luis can speak a little bit more about that one.
Yeah, so Alejandro and I were fortunate enough to launch 2 different shows, I guess in the last 5 years or so. LA Times Today, which airs on Spectrum News 1, which highlights the reporting of the LA Times on a nightly basis. And then Nuestra Voz Today, which came about 3 years later. And that focused on, it was targeting the Latino audience, bilingual audience, as Alejandro mentioned, on both sides of the border. But again, we were highlighting the reporting from both publications, and we had a lot of fun doing that. Again, I can't stress enough how fortunate we were to just collaborate with our colleagues. They were, a lot of times, what I was attracted to were some of the in-depth stories. And so we were fortunate that because we were we were online, that we didn't have a time limit like regular TV news, and they have to be in and out in a minute and a half, or in some cases a minute 15. We could take 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes to tell a story. Then the pressure's on. Who are people going to stick with the story? But we saw that people did, and people liked the stories that we would put together. And then also, again, because we were on cable, we didn't have those tight time constraints that you would have on some of the regular television stations. Yeah, again, it all comes down to talking to people and what their concerns are, and then going from there.
Yeah, get out on the street and really connect with people and or in the offices, in the cafes. I really hear that because we spend so much time as creatives by ourselves in front of our monitors, little ones and big ones, right?
And I'm very shy. So I'm an introvert, and I'm shy, and I still am to this day. But I have to remember but I like telling stories, and I just have to remind myself it's not about me, it's about the person that I'm interviewing, and it's about their story. And that gets me over the hump from, or from holding me back from my own shyness.
Right. Well, it's working. I want to get to a couple of questions that have come in. First one is a big one that the industry is talking about, everyone's talking about. Your thoughts if about AI and deep fakes, especially as they relate to video. Any ideas on that?
I'm going to let you guys, I have used AI with writing. Like it actually works for me very well if I'm going to do a technical blog post, like the new visa that you're going to have to get in 2025. I just did a blog post on that. It was going to be due on 2020, now it's due 2025. What is the application form? It's just really technical stuff that I want to pass along to my readers. AI is very good for that. But I don't solely depend on it, but it's good to be one of the components, one of the factors in my research.
Right.
And I have just a really quick one is that I went on a trip. I planned it traditionally where you do the research and you plan it. I then went on something called Geek Guide, which is an AI for travel. I said to them, please give me the itinerary for going through Athens for 4 days. Where do you stay and what do you eat? And in 30 seconds, it came up with almost the identical itinerary that I had spent days putting together. So there is some good components to it.
I like to add to that is that I have researched that. I was writing about a story I took, or a trip I took to Egypt, and what are things that a solo traveler can do in Egypt, and it came right back immediately. However, you mentioned how you get this list right away. Well, where is it coming from? It's an aggregate from what's out there already. So you have to go back and check what's actually current right now, especially since the pandemic. There's still effects. Things that existed before may not be updated on different outlets. And also, when you use AI for trip itineraries, everyone's going kind of to the same places. And myself, I'm always looking for something that's the undiscovered gem, or something that really works for me as the kind of traveler I've become. So I would just add those caveats. It's wonderful to have that. It's immediate, like you say. It's shocking how fast it is. But and then you can incorporate that into the stories. Is AI affecting you too, Alejandro and Luis?
Well, I'm just, I have to admit, I feel like a latecomer to this AI stuff. I've just started recently poking around with it and seeing how I can use it, like to come up with ideas for certain things in writing. I haven't used it yet for any visuals or video. I guess the only thing I could say is it is scary to see what's going on out there and what ends up on social media. And I hope that there's a way to quickly, I guess, teach people how to avoid the fake things from the truth, from what's real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for my use, I haven't seen. I am same as Lisa. Not too much. I have checked out some of the like the Chat GP3, GP4s, or Bards, stuff like that for the writing components. It's pretty. I mean, it's not 100%, but it's getting there. As far as for video and editing, they have made leaps and bounds with like audio repairing audios when you have bad audio files. It has done stuff like that. With video, I do see like stabilizations and clips like that where you can now shoot stuff in handheld and it actually can get softened up in post-production. Color correction can also be added. Different types of color grading can be added with the use of AI, where it can match a shot from like a movie or whatever clip you want, and it brings it into the style of what you're looking for in the editing. So there are some tools there that are pretty cool to see. For photography, we cannot touch the AI stuff. I mean, when we shoot a picture, it has to be the photo that you've taken, not a photo that has been manipulated in any way. So, yeah, I don't tinker with that because I don't want to go down that route. But it is interesting and it's scary because it's just beginning.
Yeah, it is. May I ask if you could help us understand where you find the tools to work on the color correction and the editing and the audio help?
For me, well, like I said, it's the stuff that I've been mentioning is mostly plugins for Premiere. Like in Premiere, there's been new vocal enhancers that when you can drop this plugin into your audio clips, it just cleans your audio really nice, and it can eliminate background sounds. You can give it different types of sound spaces that you want your sound to be in. So that tool has been pretty nice. There is a tool there to help you balance audio levels between background music or your talking subject. So again, these are tools like in the software that I use for Premiere. When it comes to color grading, there are tools. What do I use? I forgot the name of the software that I use. I need to open up my Premiere, but there is a color grading software that I've been using, and I think it's just called color grade. It just might be called color grade. And it just helps me with the look of a video. So it's kind of like in photography, you're toning your pictures. It's kind of like the same thing you're applying to video. But again, this only applies when you shoot video like at a high resolution, because if you're going to make adjustments or manipulations with video files, you got to be working with some high-end files to adjust that. So like I said before, we used to just shoot videos out of the camera and say, oh, it's fine. But now as you start looking and going down this rabbit hole, like, you know what? I want my videos to look like this, darker, just like this. And now I see a movie and I'm like, you know what? How can I get that look but then I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, you're just creating a news segment or a news package. You don't have to go all fancy like that. But sometimes if you have the time, it is nice to invest some of that. And I only do that when I have the time, but it's pretty rare when I do that.
It's exciting though.
I did come across an app, and I believe it's called Noise Eraser. And so and the cost I think was very minimal, but yeah, it did help. I recently was shooting again vertical video for social media, and there was a lot of background noise, and the noise just was not very clear. And as Alejandro knows, I'm a stickler for audio, for clean audio. So I went ahead and imported these clips onto this app, and I was surprised with what it came back with. I mean, it sounded like people that I was just getting what we call natural sound from I don't know, maybe 20 feet away, 10, 20 feet away. It sounded like I had mic'd them up. And I was so surprised by how clean the audio came back once it was cleaned up by this app.
That's amazing.
Luis, do you use a microphone on your iPhone? An external microphone?
Yes, I recently started to use a microphone, yes. And again, and it's not an expensive microphone. It does plug into my iPhone, and the unfortunate thing is, as I experienced, I'm so used to splitting audio, meaning if I'm shooting with broadcast, you have two audio channels. And so if you mic two people up, you can get a clean audio from one person, even if the audio on the other person is not clean. With these inexpensive microphones, they're great. The audio is very clean. However, it doesn't split audio, so if Alejandro is talking and his audio is clean, but Maggie, you're playing with your hair and it's rubbing up against the microphone, you're not going to be able to hear anything that Alejandro says if I mic both of you, because it's recording both of you at the exact same time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Important tips.
So keep that in mind.
I'm wondering about lighting tech when you're on the street. For most of us, that's the kind of situation we're going to be in. I mean, ring lights are ubiquitous, right? But what do you worry about light? How do you work when you're out there on the street? You're not in the studio.
So for me, I just bought this recent light. It's from Small Rig. It's the RM 120. And this little light, it's like, I mean, you see it, it's really tiny. I added this. This is an extra attachment, which is an extra just so I can swivel. I mean, it's a swivel for my camera, so I can mount on my cameras. But this little pocket light, super bright. It's only at, what is it at right now? That is 73%, and it's really bright, different colors. But before, I just got this recently, and I'm not usually a guy that shoots with a lot of light. As a photojournalist, you learn to work with natural light a lot, and you use different lenses to capture in low light. So the lower your f-stop, the more light that comes into your lens, and you don't have to use as high ISOs to shoot in low light. So, but those lenses cost a lot of money, lots and lots of money. So I've started using a little light. I actually used it last night because I had a candlelight visual at 7 p.m. So the lighting was horrible, but in that situation, we had cars passing by. So as soon as I saw a car passing by hitting the subject, take the picture, and then move on. And so you use whatever light source you have, really. And so for run and gun, I just highly recommend always have like the cheapest lens from Canon, which is the 51.8 millimeter lens, and that lens is going to be your bread and butter when you have to go in low light situations. It's very helpful when you bring it down to the 1.8 setting. I'm getting too technical, but yeah, those lights are good. That particular light is good.
It's really helpful. Thank you. Could you tell us the name of the company that makes that small light you held up again?
It's called Small Rig, just like
Small
that.
Rig.
Yeah.
Okay.
Small Rig makes a lot of products.
Okay.
And I wanted to go just a little bit, and I haven't bought these yet because but I'm looking to probably buy these. The only thing that's throwing me off is the naming. But the DJI mics, the DJI mics, the new ones, mic 2s, are perfect for capturing run and gun audio. I'm currently using like the Sennheiser's Bluetooth microphones, which are a little pricey. They're like about almost $800 a set. The new DJI's mic 2s are like, I think around $350, and those mics for shooting with cell phones, shooting with cameras, it's a pretty cool system. It has two independent microphones that can be connected to your cell phone or to your camera, and you can capture audio, split audio if you want it. And these are microphones that you can just clip them onto the subject, or you can actually attach a lavalier to the subject. And it like I said, I'm gonna look into that technology because it looks, from what I've been looking at the reviews, it looks very promising. Each microphone is its own independent recording device. So if you don't even have it plugged into your camera, this is your backup right here. It's a physical backup onto the microphone itself. So it sounds like a pretty cool concept. They just came out recently, but that's a shameless plug for DJI right there.
No, it's helpful. It's helpful.
Hey, Elaine, can I tell people, I have a good thing that I've learned. It's called the iPhone Photography School. And if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you take it. I think it was $99, and I've now been getting videos for 2-3 years for that. And they do video. They show you how to shoot video, post-edit video, still photographies. When we were talking about CapCut, they have myriad videos on doing CapCut and how you work it, etc. So I highly recommend that for people.
And I know we're running out of time, but the wireless mics that I was talking about, I think they cost me like $40, and not the $800 that Alejandro was talking about, but the audio was really good for $40. I've been using them now for a couple of months.
What's the name?
You know, I got it on Amazon, and it wasn't like a name brand. This, at least not that I've heard of. This particular model was, it's AISIZON wireless mics. So I don't IZON, but again, it's you know, it's probably a product that's made overseas, very cheaply, but it does the job.
Works.
Really helpful, you guys. This is great. I'm sure we're getting a lot of things. Catherine is sharing a phone photography school. I think that's what you're mentioning.
Yeah, it's called iPhone Photography School.
There you go, iPhone Photography School. All right. Unless we have more questions, we can start to wrap this up. Are there any parting words you'd like to give? Final lessons, something to inspire people keep going with video storytelling? I'm just going to mention one quick thing that's really helped me a lot. I shoot fast, I shoot short, and then I edit together a lot. And it helps me to keep track of things and to develop stuff and put stories together fast. Any other tips from people?
I think, again, I'm going back to the whole, don't let your personality, for example, mine being shy or an introvert, stop you from trying to succeed in this business. It is a tough business, but you have to be persistent, and just remember to be empathetic and kind, and continue to be curious.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and I think it's just put yourself out there. Like, it's really hard sometimes. I'm telling you, put yourself in front of the camera, you go, God, I look horrible. You know, but it doesn't matter. Just put yourself out there. Number one, be positive, be kind, like Louis said, but be positive. You know, there's a lot, too much negativity. Provide useful content. People are going to get something out of in life, and continue to educate yourself. My parting words.
On top of everything said, I would say your first video will not be an Emmy-winning video. Your second video will never be an Emmy. Your third, fourth video won't be. But that practice will make perfect. So by the time you do get to another level, you already have made those mistakes early in your career, and keep going. I mean, those mistakes are going to happen. Don't let those stop you. And you got this. And in the career of visual journalists or photojournalists or videographer, it's good to know both formats. So don't get hung up on just only a videographer, or I'm only a photographer or photojournalist. In this new world, it's valuable to have both of those skills to learn how to shoot video, shoot photography, edit, capture audio, lighting, and all those things. So try to learn a little bit about all of those to make yourself a better candidate for any position.
Great words. And it doesn't all happen overnight, just like you said. You know, start someplace. It layers in. I challenge myself to learn something every time I turn on the camera and sit down to do it. Well, this has been fantastic. I think we have a lot of actionable items. I can't thank you three enough for all your generosity and your time, and looking forward to seeing where you're all going to go in the future. So thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you very much, Maggie Espinosa, Luis Cruz, and Alejandro Tamayo. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time.